This video contains real-world experience with the highly idealized PMK-2 gas mask. If you experience sweating, rage, or uncontrollable urge to defend Soviet engineering while watching, ask your doctor if the Soviet Jack series is right for you.
Thank you, lady from Medical Ads. I'll take it from here. Since I vividly remember my previous experience with GP7, a mask almost identical to the PMK-2 we're about to review, let's start with the head straps fitting first. Each rubber strap is divided into numbered sections, and yep, this looks like GP7 all over again. You can't tighten or loosen them by simply pulling them. Instead, you have to forcefully push the straps through the plastic buckles while not wearing the mask, so get your fingers ready for a serious workout. The bottom buckles are different from the metal GP7 ones. You know, the ones that actually made tightening and loosening of the straps possible. In other words, all 5 straps on the PMK-2 need to be pre-adjusted before donning, because you won't be able to move them once it's on. What can I say? I'm very excited to proceed with the fitting.
What was that sound? Hopefully nothing snapped.
Oh, I thought it's gonna be worse, but actually... There is something inside I forgot to take off. PMK-2 gas masks come with a storage insert that keeps the mask in shape, you guessed it, during storage, and it looks completely identical to the GP7 one. Okay, it is not as bad as it was with GP7, but it's still pretty tight. No idea why I even bothered loosening the straps, since they can't be tightened while wearing the mask anyway. This has to be the most frustrating gas mask fitting I've ever performed. The good news is that once you get the hang of it, you'll be able to push the straps through the buckles with less effort, but it's still an infuriating and time-consuming process, especially because you have to figure out the correct strap positions through trial and error to make the mask seal properly without being painfully tight. There are Russian charts online with recommended strap positions for various head shapes, but I found them completely useless.
Woo! Alright, that's good enough for now. So after like 15 or 20 minutes, the PMK-2 is now prepped, straps wise. Nice fogging though.
Yeah, why having an oronasal cup? I'm trying to be open-minded here, but we're not off to a good start and the mask is not even ready to be used yet. Just take a day off if you're considering putting the mask together. I need a break now, so let's take a look at what the rest of the PMK-2 kit consists of. There's a filter I certainly won't be using even for testing, but this one is unlike any other filter I've seen before. The plastic piece clipped onto the top of the filter is an air deflector that goes inside the mask once the filter is inserted into the facepiece. Not screwed in, inserted. You heard me right. The filter doesn't have threading, just 4 protrusions which act as retainers, and there's an inlet valve inside the filter, much like the filters from the 1930s when masks usually didn't have built-in inlet valves. Hopefully the air deflector will make a difference when it comes to the heavy fogging you've seen during fitting. In a disassembled state, the facepiece has only 2 circular openings that need to be fitted with a plug on one side and a filter on the other. You can choose which side to mount the filter on, which is a nice improvement unlike the GP7 where the filter side was fixed. There are also 2 rubber gaskets which I assume are meant to be placed between the facepiece and the filter/plug to improve the seal, so let's install the filter. I've never done this before and it quickly became clear that I could have lived without this experience, because it's not easy at all. In fact, it's downright infuriating. Who came up with this shit? The rubber around the facepiece openings is quite thick, and at first it felt impossible to fit the filter in, especially with the gasket in place, so I eventually gave up on using the gasket altogether. After 10 minutes of struggling, I decided to put some Vaseline around the opening to improve my chances of forcing the damn filter in. This is not how I imagined this review going, as if I had nothing better to do, like staring at a wall.
Is it in? No. One side. Isn't it? Okay. Okay. Woo. It's in. It just needed a little greasing. This is ridiculous.
Once the filter is inserted, the 4 protrusions now sticking into the mask need to be fitted with the air deflector, so let's click that into place. All this effort was ultimately pointless, because there's no way I'm ever going to use an old Soviet filter. Still, at least now you can see how easy it is to install one. Who needs filters that simply screw into a standard port when you can wrestle with one of the most absurd systems ever designed? Even removing the filter takes serious effort. Good luck changing it while wearing the mask, which is effectively impossible, partly because the air deflector is secured to the other side of the filter assembly. A filter that can't be swapped in a contaminated environment? Brilliant idea! The mask comes with a threaded inlet assembly that allows it to use standard 40mm ghost filters. Unfortunately, that means I can't wrap this review up just yet, so let's push through the misery of installing the adapter, just like I did with the filter. I think this is how the gasket is supposed to be positioned, although I could very well be wrong. Time for more Vaseline, which by this point has proven essential for assembling the mask. Pushing the adapter in is even more difficult than installing the filter, mainly because it's made of plastic and my grip strength is vanishing by the minute. Let's just fast forward through this ordeal. In real time it took me around 10 minutes and nobody needs to sit through that. So... It is in! Woo! Woo! It is in! Take that, PMK-2! Lastly, the air deflector needs to be clipped onto the protrusions from the inside, facing upwards, so that the inhaled air helps clear condensation from the eyepieces while the mask is being worn. Did I say lastly? Haha, I wish. There's still a plug that has to be forced into the other opening of the facepiece. That should be easier, right? It turns out it is absolutely not. I spent about an hour trying to fit it in, both on the filming set and at home, and I still couldn't do it. Frustration, anger, despair. That's what assembling PMK-2 feels like. At this point, I completely lost I'm throwing this Soviet abomination into the trash, and I'm done with this cursed review altogether. There goes my open-mindedness. I guess we're done here, because the filter port plug won't go in, and I'm done. My fingers are numb. I'm sorry guys, but this is it. Like and subscribe. What? She did it. Thank you. Truth be told, fitting the plug in was ultimately a team effort, although she made the final crucial push that finally seated it properly. The only thing that we had to leave out was the gasket, which I'm not even sure it is supposed to be there. Screw it. Now for the rest of the kit, because I'd actually like to start testing the mask at some point. There are 2 plastic bags for body parts. Just kidding, they're intended for storing contaminated equipment safely or prevent it from getting contaminated in the first place. Here's the drinking adapter, still sealed in plastic, and that's probably where it's going to stay since I already have a complete Soviet drinking bottle setup. This appears to be a spare drinking hose, which is definitely nice to have. There's also this plastic case, whatever that's supposed to be, along with 2 filter accessories. A supposedly waterproof fabric protective cover meant to shield the filter from rain, mud, snow, and larger particles like dust, plus a small mesh insert that prevents the cover from sticking to the filter inlet and blocking airflow while inhaling. Personally though, I see the cover only as a great way to trap and carry contaminants, so I would never use this filter sock under any circumstances. There's a reason why no one except Russians uses these. Just like many other Soviet masks, the PMK-2 comes with a round metal container holding plastic anti-fog inserts that are meant to be installed inside the eyepieces. Let me get this straight, the mask already has an air deflector and it still needs additional inserts just to keep the lenses from fogging up? You know, they could have simply designed the mask with a proper oronasal cap in the first place. Finally, the last items in the bag are the clear outserts, and they're quite massive thanks to their metal frames. To attach them to the eyepieces, you need to stretch the rubber rings. Just like with the outserts used on masks like M10M and M40, they all share the same basic design. As for the carrying bag, it's perfectly decent. It offers plenty of storage space, the main compartment is easy to access, and the back can be worn either on a belt or over the shoulder. It also features a waist strap to keep it from swinging around while moving. Alright, let's finally move on to the testing. As always, I'll be using a new ghost threaded filter. These were provided by the Czech manufacturer Sigma. Many thanks to them. This particular filter is labeled Plus, which means it's rated for 30% lower breathing resistance compared to the standard version, so that's definitely something worth testing. Not to mention that a single filter like this is probably worth more than the mask itself. One thing I really appreciate about PMK-2 and GP7 is the use of dual exhalation valves. That's actually a solid safety feature, as it reduces the chance of gases entering the facepiece if one valve fails. I honestly wish more masks used twin exhale valves, because most rely on just a single one. In our GP7 review, I indirectly claimed that the rubber exhale cover couldn't be repositioned, and that turned out to be wrong. You can actually remove it quite easily like this and mount it symmetrically to the facepiece. I have no idea why I didn't even try it back then. The drinking system used on the PMK-2 and GP7V uses the well-known M-type adapter, just like many American masks, presumably because the Soviets shamelessly copied the design. The way the drinking hose wraps around the voice diaphragm cover is pretty awkward and impractical in actual use, as it loops at the bottom. Classic Soviet engineering. The hose itself is long enough, which is great, unlike the absurdly short one used on the M40 gas mask. However, because it loops directly underneath the voice cover clamp, the rubber gets constantly pressed against it. Over time, this deforms the hose and can eventually cause it to tear. The exact same thing happened on my GP7V. The internal drinking straw can be repositioned by rotating the metal connector between the hose and the straw, but the whole mechanism feels incredibly cheap. Most of the time it feels like I'm just twisting the surrounding rubber rather than actually moving the connector itself. The facepiece is flexible and springy, so let's see how comfortable it actually is to wear.
The mask seals just fine. It's tight, but I was able to don it under 30 seconds, which I consider a victory. And how is the voice quality? It's quite good, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great.
The field of view is noticeably better than on GP7V, thanks to the differently shaped eyepieces. Surprisingly, once the mask is properly assembled and the air deflector is positioned correctly, there are no fogging issues whatsoever, even while speaking. Of course, that doesn't mean the mask still wouldn't benefit from having an oronasal cap for other important reasons, such as more efficient removal of carbon dioxide from the facepiece. Here's the original Soviet drinking bottle, made from translucent plastic and featuring the same coupling half I've showed earlier. The rubber plug is attached to a simple thread, so it doesn't get lost, and while it screams basic, at least the thread can be easily replaced with almost anything if it tears. As I mentioned earlier, the way the hose is wrapped and looped around itself takes some practice to handle properly, since the adapter can easily get stuck, and of course you can't see what you're doing while wearing the mask.
It clicked in nicely. Now to position the drinking straw. Where is the straw? Where is the fucking straw? Got it. So far nothing, but it leaks. I guess it's not pressed in enough. Let's try it again. It should be in. Where is the problem? And my god, the mask is so uncomfortable. It squeezes my jaw, even though the bottom straps are completely loosened. I want to take this off as soon as possible. God! Flow, water, flow! It's possible the hose is mangled. But still. Yes, that was the problem. The hose was simply, squashed.
Yeah, good luck getting the hose back in its original position afterwards.
Anyway, I need to take the mask off because it's squeezing my jaw and it's so painful.
Of course, we just had to film the jogging test when it was nearly 30 degrees Celsius outside, but at least that says more about the mask's capabilities under conditions that are far from ideal. Even though the mask lacks an oronasal cap, the tip of my nose was pressed against the inside of the facepiece. It didn't interfere with breathing, but it definitely was uncomfortable. The breathing resistance was practically negligible, although I mostly credit that to the high-quality Sigma filter. I seriously considered taking a break and removing the mask because the jaw pain was gradually becoming unbearable, but I found that keeping my jaw and teeth clenched actually helped quite a bit. Lastly, the mask maintains a reasonably solid seal even while I'm shaking my head around. Oops, I'm not losing balance because I had a drink before filming, but I'll definitely have 1 or 10 afterwards.
My god, the pain is unbearable. My jaw. My sweet, sweet jaw. Let's take this abomination off.
The marks left on my forehead after removing the mask are pretty noticeable, although honestly, I expected something far worse considering how tight the straps are. Alright, let's get this over with. On one hand, I'm genuinely annoyed that I agreed to review this mask because frankly, PMK-2 and everyone involved in designing it. On the other hand, the hell I went through while filming this review made me appreciate masks like Skid Mask 90 and Avon FM12 even more. For what it is, PMK-2 is an absurdly overcomplicated mask built around the idea that you need to suffer in order to be protected from CBRN threats, so I sincerely hope I never have to use it again. In fact, I already sold it along with the rest of my Soviet surplus junk, GP5 excluded, purely because it's iconic. Horrible, but iconic. If you're into Soviet aesthetics or collecting gas masks, I completely understand why the PMK-2 appeals to you. It looks rad, but from the perspective of someone focused on the practical performance and usability of respirators, this mask is bad in almost every aspect. And yes, when paired with a modern, reliable filter, it's still better than having no protection at all. But ultimately, the PMK-2 design has not aged well, and honestly, it was never particularly good to begin with. I hope you enjoyed this final Soviet junk review, and I'll see you next time on CBRN.
Wait, what about the PBF mask?
Why can't you just give me a break? Alright, I guess I promised to cover it, but definitely not in a dedicated review. This grotesque monstrosity will be discussed in an upcoming video about cheek filter masks and why I would never use them. Now I'm going to have the drink.